Okay, let's dive into this. Welcome to today's explainer, where we're tackling a really critical, foundational concept straight out of the master glossary. We're looking at anecdotal observation, which, is also widely known in the field as ABC recording. Listen, if you're truly serious about understanding behavior, you have to understand exactly how to observe it first. We're going to unpack what this method is, why it's an absolute game changer for your analytical toolkit, and how it literally sets the stage for everything else you do. I want you to think about a pretty fundamental question for a second. How do we actually capture real-world complexity? Because let's face it, behavior doesn't happen in a vacuum, right? It's messy, it's fast-paced, and it's just incredibly complex. Before you can even begin to define a single, rigid operational target, you need a discovery tool. A narrative way to capture life exactly as it happens in real time without forcing it into some predetermined box. And that is exactly what ABC recording is designed to do. It's that irreplaceable first step in your investigative process. Section 1. The Narrative Discovery Tool, Observation in Flow. Let's set the stage for how we actually go about observing behaviors in their natural, uninterrupted flow, and why taking a step back to simply write a narrative is so incredibly powerful. So here's our working definition. Anecdotal observation, or ABC recording, is a method that utilizes a free-flowing narrative timeline based on the A to B to C sequence. That's antecedent, behavior, consequence. And notice it's doing this rather than relying on rigid data points. When you're out there using this method, you aren't tallying numbers. You're not forcing events into an unnatural structure. Instead, you're establishing a foundational, completely descriptive sequence of events. Basically, you're mapping out the environment and the actions like a story, which is absolutely the best way to generate highly accurate hypotheses later on.
Section 2. Becoming a Human Camera, Objective Recording. Now, what's really interesting about this mindset is that to use this analytical method effectively, you literally have to stop being a judge and start being an objective recording device. Let's look at a critical distinction. On one side, we have interval recording. Interval recording just asks one super simple question: did it happen? You look, you check a box, you move on. But here's the problem. Those checkboxes, they completely destroy context. On the flip side, we have anecdotal observation. This method asks, what exactly happened, in what order, and surrounded by what? It's totally open-ended. It forces you to look at the environment holistically rather than just hunting around for a single behavior. When you act as that human camera, you're capturing three vital elements. First, topography. What does the behavior actually look like in physical space? Are they tapping a pencil, or are they throwing a desk? Second, latency. That's the exact amount of time that passes between an event happening and the behavior starting. And third, context. All those rich environmental details surrounding the entire sequence. Taking the time to capture this immense level of granular detail, that's exactly how you uncover the real function of a behavior, rather than just settling for an assumed one.
Section 3. Extracting the real function. Raw data to action.
All right, so now that we've gathered all this incredibly rich, descriptive narrative data, what do we actually do with it? We have to shift gears and look at the procedural flow of turning those raw, real-world observations into actionable, operational definitions. And this brilliantly illustrates the journey, breaking down into 3 distinct steps. Step 1, you start with your continuous narrative, capturing absolutely everything as it flows. Step 2, you organize that narrative into a temporal sequence, mapping out the exact chronological order of antecedents, behaviors, and consequences. And then, Step 3, pattern extraction. This is where the magic happens, folks. By looking at the sequence over and over, the true patterns start to emerge from your raw notes. This structured journey is how you confidently move from observing a totally chaotic environment to extracting clear, targeted patterns.
Section 4. The Trap of Causation. Avoid false assumptions.
But there is a massive danger lurking in this process if you aren't careful. It's just human nature to see a pattern and immediately assume, aha, I found the root cause. But falling into that trap will completely derail your analysis. You must remember that descriptive does not equal experimental. This is a massive shift in how we think about our data. We've talked about the incredible power of narrative recording, but make no mistake, this is its most critical, inherent limitation. A magnifying glass is not a laboratory.
I really want to slow down here for a second, because if you take away only one thing from today's explainer, it absolutely needs to be this. The master glossary is explicitly clear. Narrative data shows correlation, never causation. It is descriptive. It tells you that two things happen together in time and space, sure, but it does absolutely nothing to prove that one thing triggered the other.
Let's look at a practical example directly from the source material to prove why this distinction matters so much. Say you're reviewing your narrative notes and you see that self-injurious behavior, or SIB, consistently follows demands. Okay, just because SIB follows demands in your notes does not mean demands cause the SIB. The underlying driver could be escape from the demand, for sure. But, it could also be attention if staff are suddenly rushing over to intervene, or it could just be automatic reinforcement. That single observed correlation has multiple possible drivers, and your narrative notes simply cannot definitively tell you which one is the true cause.
Section 5. Validating your hypothesis, achieving certainty.
Which brings us to the final step of the investigator's journey. If anecdotal observation can't give us the final answer, how do we resolve this tension? What has to happen next to achieve absolute certainty? So the crucial point is the relationship between generating an idea and actually confirming it. Anecdotal observation achieves hypothesis generation. It gives you an incredibly educated, detailed guess about what might be driving the behavior. But experimental manipulation is required for confirmation. You must never, ever skip the experimental validation step. You have to take the hypothesis you generated from your human camera notes and you test it under controlled conditions. Ultimately, that is the only way to turn a really strong theory into a confirmed fact. Which leaves us with this final, critical question to chew on. How will you transform your raw narrative data into testable hypotheses? It takes real practice to become an objective human camera and to extract those vital patterns without falling into the causation trap. If you want to master this skill, I highly recommend you hit the link to BxMeducation.com, crush today's BxM quiz block, and unlock the master explanation. Keep observing, keep questioning, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.